Are you interested in becoming a permanent part of the channel or having a direct impact on the type of content that I create? Well, now you can check out the Alliteration Gaming Patreon. Throughout it, you're going to find a handful of different tiers that can include special perks like shoutouts on the supporter card at the beginning of all my videos, access to the private channel in my Discord, and the ability to watch all of my content on Patreon a couple weeks early and totally ad-free. On top of that, the different video tiers will let you commission videos directly from me. We can build a deck together, you can send me some gameplay to commentate, or even select a character for me to spotlight. You can also now join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on YouTube. Pledging your subscription here is going to grant you a same spot on that supporter card and access to that same Discord channel, as well as hook you up with a member's badge that levels up and access to emotes when I stream on YouTube. I'm going to have the Patreon link down below to check out, and the Discord should you want to join that. And if you want to become a channel member, the join button is what you want to hit. If you end up supporting my work in any way, thank you so much. I'm incredibly grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Now, let's get on to the video. And good evening, my dear viewers, and welcome to another Alliteration Gaming video. My name's Levi, and this evening we're going to be doing another build a deck. I've got Mr. Thomas Woody coming back on to take a look at what you might remember, our evil Toga 1 deck that we did a couple months back. Well, we're looking to revisit that deck now in some post-set for glory. Now, the core concept of the deck is still kind of the same, so what we're really going to be doing in this setting is Thomas wants me to help him just kind of put a bit of refinement on the deck, maybe find some new tech pieces, include some new cards for set 4, and really just get a competitive sideboard ready for his upcoming Provisional Store Championship this weekend. So rather than a full-on build, this is going to be much more of just kind of a refinement session, but either way, there's still a lot to learn from what we go over, especially when it comes to getting ready for some big events and what you want to sideboard. So let's jump right back into this Toga deck for a second time on the channel. Thomas, my friend, this is 2.0 post set 4 of our lovely evil Toga deck. Now, you told me that you're trying to get this bad boy ready for a store championship, a little provisional action this coming weekend, and kind of trying to get us up to snuff. Now, last time we talked about this deck, it was kind of a Blood Moon Rending deck, but like also kind of good stuff evil. Like we were playing Tongue Whips because obviously we're still playing those. We were playing Compression Spheres because it has really good interaction with Toga and with Excited for Blood and all that. Well, it looks like it's evolved much more into a bit of a good stuff evil deck now. So just kind of tell me about how the deck has changed since we last talked about it, and what holes you're still feeling in the post set 4 world.
I definitely, like, after playing some games, I made a few little small changes here and there. As far as after set 4, the only thing I've added so far is the needle stab because, felt really good. And then, so I decided the Blood Moon Rending was really good. I love Blood Moon Rending, but I feel like I needed to slightly stray away from a full-on weapons package. So I cut the Blood Moon Rending back. Most of the time now, I'm ending the game with, like, needle stab and a slashing whirlwind. Because if you can go needle stab, discard a card to get +3 speed, and then go into slashing whirlwind, and you've got an 8 mid for 14. That's kind of difficult to deal with.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, and like I've had it before. Actually, like earlier today, I went to locals and I was playing against Mineta, and I ended up just on needle stab. I discarded 4 cards out of my hand to give the next one +3, and then to add the 2 top cards of my deck to my momentum just to get Slashing Whirlwind off. I was able to end the game that way. It was an extreme situation, but it works. So I think the way that Toga was lacking before was like really, really strong game enders against decks that drew a lot of cards. So like Blood Moon Rending didn't feel as good against the decks that you play all these attacks and they can deal with them, and they still got 2 or 3 cards in their hand at the end of the turn when you go into it. And then because of the fact that the needle stab there is kind of like a key component now, I added, I'm sure you noticed, I added the coping with #1 to draw an extra card, so I have a few extra cards to play with there, so it doesn't hurt me. Even being a 1-hand or 7-hand size character, that 1 extra card, even if I just pitch it for needle stab or something like that. So overall, the deck feels really good. I'm doing a lot better with it competitively. Like I've been playing against like Asui, I played against Mineta, I played against an Eraserhead today. I beat a Bakugo 2 deck earlier today. So the deck feels good. Right now, I'm just trying to kind of hammer out like sideboard, maybe like a few holes, see what really good set 4 stuff could be subbed in for some of the stuff that may not be as good now. Now that there's good set 4 stuff coming in.
Right. Well, as far as Evil in set 4, they got access to a lot of pretty cool new things that I do want to talk about. Obviously, like I said, we've covered this deck before. We talked about this deck a lot. The shell of it and the concept of it is not really something that we need to crack into. So this is going to be much more of like a kind of like a little tweak session, if you will.
Yeah.
I do definitely have some standouts. I guess if we want to talk about your attacks, first of all, I did have some ideas there because I kind of figured, okay, he's moving much more towards like a generic kind of good stuff evil package. Obviously, we still have Needle Stab and Whirlwind. These are kind of like the cornerstones of our aggression, as you've been saying. And I can definitely see the flexibility, especially as a 7-hander who gets free Excited for Bloods all day. We have Coping with number 1 as well. We get to see a lot of cards to fuel something like that. So I'm definitely not against this engine whatsoever. The Compression Spheres and the Tongue Whips are very, very good within our character. At that point, though, you could even look into just cutting the Blood Moon entirely and kind of going for like some more good stuff, if you will. Granted, you don't necessarily have to, because like a lot of these cornerstones, right, are still weapons, right? So it's certainly not hard to still get those Blood Moon chains off. But if we went to a more generic route, we could opt to include things like Mr. Vile Seizing, one of just the greatest generic 4 diff attacks in the game right now. A 1 high with Breaker 1. Most of the time, it's just a 3 high for 6 that draws a card with an insane deadlock. If they check poorly, if they check well, you might stun 2 instead. Like, card's just very, very good depending on, what your rival gives to you.
Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely one of the ones I wanted to get. Right now, I had a couple on order. I'm not sure if they're going to be here in time. I was still deciding where I would plug them in. I wasn't sure as far as like ratios are concerned where those would plug in well. But I did have a couple on order, but I'm not sure if they'll be here in time for the provisional come up.
Yeah, that is a valid concern. And then as far as like just some other really, really good weapons, if you want to like kind of stick to that package a little bit, I think Netgun Surprise and Ignited Arrow are just always really solid options. I think we might have been playing arrows before in the last time.
We were. I ended up cutting the arrows out when I put in the Needle Stab and Slashing Whirlwind.
Yeah, I think the arrow is a little better when you're like fully opting into the Blood Moon style, right? Just because if they block it, it guarantees that second attack, and then you just need the Blood Moon, and then that's it, right? It just makes you you able to string those along a lot easier. But honestly, I do really like where your attacks are right now. I think maybe like it's like Needle Stab is kind of like a little more flexible in terms of like when it's useful. I think Slashing Whirlwind could probably be a little bit more of like a 2 of maybe.
Okay.
But I mean, we do have 20 attacks right here in our 70 card deck. So I also kind of wanted to ask you about how you feel like you're seeing attack. Do you feel like you're seeing enough?
Actually, like I haven't had an issue. Like most turns, I have at least 2 attacks in my hand, and I just wait until most time I want to wait until I see about 3 in hand, and before I want to like really, really go into it. But most of the turns, like if I see 2, with the fact that Toga filters so much, like that's enough for me to at least try and push for the game there. But for the most part, like I haven't had too much an issue because, like you said, like I'm filtering with Toga. I'm also getting a free card off Excited every turn, and most turns I'm getting another free card off Coping. So I'm usually seeing about 9-10 cards a turn at minimum, even if I only play 1 attack that turn.
That is very much the power of Toga 1. In that case, I mean, honestly, I think that from looking at it, I think your numbers and your things are pretty okay. I think since you're still playing like so many weapons, I don't know. I would like to see a 4th Tongue Whip in here, just because like it's Tongue Whip, and that card's just like so nuts. And then maybe like your 3rd Whirlwind could become like a 2nd Blood Moon.
See that? Yeah.
Just be a little more, just because like this just kind of isn't a card that you want to really see like 2 of,
Yeah. Like, but when it's good, it's really, really good.
That's fair. When it is really really good when it's good. It's just, I mean, it's more like a 2-card combo, right? At the same time though, like poking is just a really effective strategy in general against Toga, so you're gonna find that, or as Toga, so you're gonna find that momentum pretty naturally either way. And I guess we don't really have any other like hardcore outs for it, right? I don't think any of our foundations, cool students, the only thing that gets rid of our momentum. It could be fine. I guess let's just see if maybe like our deck, let's see how our deck size goes from here. But like honestly, if you're okay with 20 attacks, I think these 20 are like fine.
Yeah, like I considered like trying to tweak that number a little bit, maybe go a little bit more because it is a 70 card deck.
Yeah.
But again, like if I play multiple attacks on a turn, like I can easily see 10, 8, 9, 10 cards in a turn. So like for the most part, like I don't have an issue at least playing out a couple attacks every turn.
Yeah, and you also like with how like in you're in on like some really big attacks, like Knife Slice is 5 speed, Stab is 5 speed, Whirlwind's 5 speed, Tongue Whip is 5 speed, right? You put a thing in their pool, it is 5 speed. Right. And then Toga's gonna get +1 to all those, so like your pokes are really effective. I'm gonna slot in the 4th Tongue Whip, and then we're just gonna go to your foundations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with that. Yeah, like I wanted to try, like I really didn't want to go above 70. So, but like a 4th Tongue Whip, like Tongue Whip is Tongue Whip. So yeah.
Yeah, I think 70 is like 65 has kind of been like my pushing point for most characters, but again, like you said, Toga one's a pretty special case. As far as your foundations are concerned, there's some pretty spicy new ones as far as the evil symbol is concerned. First big one I want to talk about is Citywide Crisis. This card's crazy.
I was actually looking at this. I was talking to somebody at Locals today, and I saw this there, and I was like, I considered. I was trying to consider how really good it would be in this deck.
It's very good. It is very good. A lot of decks draw cards defensively. A whole lot of decks draw cards defensively, in some way, shape, or form. So like it's always going to be threatening in that way. But the biggest thing is this enhance. Just remove go to printed speed playable while committed. That's just a crazy ability. Like you wanted to talk about sideboard a lot, and you had these plus ultras in here before. We don't need those, boy. We got this right here.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that when I was talking to some guys at Locals today. I was like, the plus ultras in there because like I put the sideboard together back when I first started playing, and I really didn't have a whole lot, and so I was like, it was just kind of jammed in there to have something decent to put in there. But like I could fully see the Citywide Crisis either being like replacing plus ultra on the side or maybe even main board.
I personally, I really like this card as a main 2 side the 3rd. That's how I've been enjoying playing Citywide Crisis.
Okay, I see that.
It's also cool because that it also is a weapon. So like if we ever like need to emergency combo our Blood Moon, we do get to do that, which is kind of funny.
This is true. This is true.
I think this card would honestly, I think you could slot it in over Cool Student.
Yeah, Cool Student is probably like the one foundation that for a while there it didn't feel as good as the rest of them.
Yeah,
honestly, like it's good sometimes, but it's not great.
I like this card a lot. It just has to the deck has to fit it, and I don't think our deck doesn't fit it per se, but it's more so just that we need to get this new card in here. Citywide Crisis is like, oh, it's just too good. It's just too good. It's very strong. As far as our other 2 diffs, like Apathetic is pretty staple, right? It's like one of the only reasons. It's like one of the reasons to play Evil is getting access to a card like Apathetic. Region is really good. Not the block mod is not attractive, but the fact that it's the evil symbol. Most of our block mods aren't very attractive. And there's just going to be times where our 7 hand size character, our 20 health character that does not decrease speed on face, just isn't going to be able to block very much. So I think that backup heal feels really good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that it's the block is 4, like I would almost want to run it at 4, but like 3. I think 3 is right where that wants to be.
Yeah, I think 3 is fine. Coping with number 1 at bench press both feel amazing in this deck. If anything, I'd almost like to see like a 3rd coping and a 4th bench press. I think bench press is just a really crazy card for Toga.
Yeah.
Are there any of your spams? Because like right now your ratio is really healthy, right? You got what? 11, 15, 19, 21, 23, 26, 30? You have 30 spams, which would mean you have 18 non-spams. 7, 9, 12, 14, 18. Yeah, you have 30 to 18 right now. So, like, I think you could cut down on some of your spams for maybe a few more impactful non-spams.
Okay, I can do that. I know one that's kind of felt lackluster is the fruit of our labors.
Yeah,
I think we
really
tried to work it in there because we were kind of lacking on low blocks, and it's an okay card, and it's got a decent low block on it. I think that's why it was kind of stayed in there as long as it has.
Yeah, I think I would rather these be like maybe the third coping and the fourth bench press. Let's look at a couple other cards though that set 4 has given evil. I do really like Mastermind's Apprentice and In Control from Shigaraki's kit. I think these 2 cards are very good.
I really like Mastermind's Apprentice. I think it's a great card.
Mastermind's Apprentice, just letting you say like either stun 1 or +2 speed to like my tongue whip that's killing you is like crazy good. +2 speed to my slashing whirlwind or stun 1. Like it's just one of those cards that like every deck kind of wants, like a card that sits there and lets you like really weaponize your stage when you're ready to go in. And this is just one of those for the evil symbol.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely one that I would want. I see that going in there. Maybe drop the fruits and put the masterminds in.
Yeah, we could totally do that. We can most definitely do that. And in control, like I feel very similarly about. Obviously the flip to hate on a throw is pretty sick, but really +2 or -2 speed on demand is like, it's not like fantastic on paper, but sometimes like I said, in practice it is just this is now a 6 speed tongue whip, figure it out. This is now a 7 speed with my character 8 speed slashing whirlwind, figure it out. It's just really good. However, with the Citywide Crisis, we do now have like 6 4-checks in our deck, so I'm gonna be a little wary of that. A little wary. But if anything, it could also just be a really good sideboard card for some of those matchups. As far as main deck spams, when it comes to your zeros, I feel like Keen Observation not being our deck feels a little strange.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
yeah. I'm sorry. I think when we originally talked about this list the first time, like I had the Keen Observations in there, but I don't remember why we took. Maybe because I had too many high blocks or something like that. But like the Keen Observation it's a pretty good one. Like you get like just an extra poke. Like you throw out a knife slice and like, well, I'm gonna poke you for 3 no matter what.
Yeah, like it's just really nice, and I mean it's just so good with our character, right? It is the thing about like Keen Observation is it's just a 0 with a 2 high block, which for some decks is good enough. We actually get to use the words on the card, which does feel quite good. As far as our block zones are concerned, they're pretty balanced. We're like a little heavy on mids and highs, but it's not too bad. How do you feel about floating at 4 copies? That feels like a little excessive.
I think it would be fine. Like I usually like seeing 1 or 2 is great. Like honestly, just seeing 1 is like most of the time all you really need. Especially with like the way I tweaked up the attack package now that it's got a little more oomph to it than like the old evil weapons package did. So it's not as necessary to see every single game just to make sure that I can count to whatever number my rival's at. So I could see cutting the floating down.
Really, we could make it like floating a 3 of Intimidating Presence at 4 is a little interesting. Tell me about that.
Mainly, one, this was in here before because they added to like the emergency for Blood and Rending if it needed to be in there, and also being able to just neg 1 because I don't have a lot of speed hate in the deck. Being able to just blanket neg 1 speed on everything was nice to have there. But again, like that's not I absolutely have to have Concord.
Yeah, I think if anything, I mean, we have Shock Absorption's kind of like our only other like real speed reduction.
Right.
And I think of the 2 of these, I do like Shock a little bit better just because playable. I don't know, this card just gives you like an out to 1.3 and I really like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just think this card is like super duper versatile, and like under the evil symbol, it really does get to shine because, as you said, man, there's just not a lot of speed reduction. It's a hard knocks life. I think that Keen could, before we kind of get like ahead of ourselves. I mean, we already have 10 zeros here, which is a pretty solid number. But honestly, like Keen is just kind of like a card you want in your deck, like zero or not. So I think like having a million zeros is kind of just fine if they're good cards.
Yeah, and also like I've seen myself in a lot of games where, like I said, like I don't have a lot of speed hate, so I kind of just like for the first few turns, I'll play a Knife Slice, I'll play a Piercing Needle, and then I'll just build 2/3 and just do that for the first few turns. So I'm just going for a wider stage, it's because I can't really neg their speed very much.
Yeah.
So like having the extra spam kind of helps. That's another reason why I have so many of them there, is just being able to easily pump a bunch of them out, so that because I'm gonna have to commit a whole lot more cards when I block, because I can't reduce your 8 speed attack.
Yeah, Evil being able to go really wide on its foundations feels really, really good. So we could take, how about we take these 4 Intimidating Presence, and then we've -1 floating, right? So we can toss in like 5 cards. Let's put in like 3 Keen Observation and 2 In Control. How do you feel about that?
That's good. I just want to make sure I'm not too heavy on like the 4 checks. Yeah. But I think right there would be at what, 5 or 6?
It would be at 8, because we have Apathetic and Citywide Crisis.
Oh yeah, because we added the Citywide in, so it'd be 8. That'd be right. I think that's fine.
Let's do it. And that also gives us a couple more lows there in the deck now too, so evens our zones back up a little bit. Right. So I really like those in there. This is kind of much more of like a local meta call, but I could see Desperate Times as potentially your 0 instead of surviving the final, but that's really just dependent on like, are your rivals drawing a lot of cards at your locals? Is that just happening a lot?
Not a lot. It's kind of hit or miss. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that could be sideboard, but I don't know if I'd mainboard it.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep it in mind for sure. I also have Refreshing Slice in here because this card's kind of crazy, but I think that we're going hard enough on the 4 checks as it is. Yeah,
I really like Refreshing Slice. I think it's a great card, especially for this deck in particular. But like I said, it's right now being already at 8 4 checks, I don't know if I want to go too much higher on those.
Yeah, if you find yourself not really liking In Control, you can definitely keep in mind Refreshing Slice for that slot as well.
For sure.
As far as most of the other stuff I have on here, before we talk about sideboard, actually, Evil Gaze in the main. I think we've talked about how I feel about Evil Gaze in the main. Chivalrous Competitor scares me a lot. I'm a little baby, and those decks are everywhere. But I think it was okay before set 4, but now as the evil symbol, we have a mandatory action we have to run, and its name is Showdown.
I'll say, like that was definitely one that I was gonna do. I was actually supposed to be picking Showdowns up on Saturday when the event happens, so I was gonna be switching the 2 mainboard Evil Gaze for Showdowns.
Yeah, I would absolutely do that. That is 100% what I wanted to do there. So with those tweaks in mind, I'll start clearing up stuff in here because we can talk about sideboard options now, because one of the things that you really wanted to talk about was sideboarding for this event. I have a few things in here, but I first want to talk about the few things you had in here. So I see you have Stain in the sideboard. We do have a very, very weapon heavy deck, so I don't hate it, but I'm not sure if they're like, did you have a time in mind where you would want to be Stain, basically?
Honestly, like the time that I wanted to be Stain was if I was going to be on the play and I felt like it was against an opponent where I just had to do my best to kill them on turn 2. So usually I would have brought in Stain and the 3 alleyway ambush that I had in the side, and I would just try and go as aggressive as possible.
So the only lame thing about that is Stain is not a set 2 character. He does not get to do the cool alleyway ambush thing.
Well, see, this is what happens when you don't read the cards.
It's okay, man. It's okay, dude. Colors are hard. Yeah. It's just a little color, man. Yeah, I mean, Saint's fine. If they're playing like a deck that's like really like reliant on like certain foundations, like the commit and freeze is like okay. Honestly though, I don't know. I'm a lot less hot on this character now that the whole like you can't freeze something that's committed ruling happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, like the stuff that was in my sideboard was like the first event that I tried to play, which was that one in Somerville months and months ago.
Hmm.
That I just kind of like the day before, I just jammed 10 cards in the sideboard and was like, okay,
Yes.
we'll try this. So they were just there.
Makes sense. So most of the other stuff I have, I think like the thing about alleyways, like you could keep them in here if you just really need to like blow up someone on turn 2. But I think this card's much better in like Toga decks that are like really, really, really built for it.
Right. Yeah.
Like you said yourself, your whole kind of game plan is like throw like, 2 attacks out there and then just kind of see what happens, having to get those 5 cards in your card pool. And like, if we were like maxing out every card draw and playing like a ton of cantrips and vial seizing stuff like that, I think it would make a lot more sense. But if our deck's not tutored towards it, I think that if we really need to kill someone super fast, just trying to turbo into Needle Stab Whirlwind sounds fine.
And I've noticed that like I can do that pretty well. And honestly, like I've started really, really loving Compression Sphere lately because if I can get a few pokes in the early turns, like this guy, coming out with an EX2, like I can, slam him and then he's an 8 high for 6, or 7 or 8 with floating and bench press. Like he can get pretty big.
Yeah.
And again, the response of being able to activate Toga on my opponent's turn is great. But
yeah, it's super good, and if you just like, they block your first move and then you like Toga Keen Observation, it's like immediately online with stun 2.
Yep.
It's nice. So as far as sideboard goes, I have like a ton of things that we could talk about here, but I guess for to start with, like kind of tell me like what decks are you like afraid of for this event? What decks are you like worried about having tech for?
Well, I'm not sure like what other people that like aren't locals might be coming to this event because it is a PSC and all that. But for the most part, I do see a lot of like Eraserhead. I see a lot of Asui. There's a few Chaco players. I'm trying to think. There is I think there's one that plays like Bakugo. So like it's a really like weird mashup of it. So
it's
like
it's a bit of a motley crew.
yeah. So I'm not sure. Like I don't think I have a specific like deck in mind that I'm afraid of because I honestly there's no telling what people are going to be bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's super fair. We can kind of just look to include generic stuff at that point. If you told me that there were a bunch of like big like one singular dunk moves running around, I would recommend maybe something like Netgun Surprise. But honestly, with Citywide Crisis, I think that covers all of our speed resets. But I would definitely play the third Citywide inside the sideboard. Especially just because like as a a 71 card deck, as a really, really fat deck, you are going to go a lot of games where you never see your 2-ofs.
Right.
So just kind of keep that in mind when you're like teching certain things, but that's okay because like I said, our sideboard can help pad that out. Obviously
just bring in the extra copies of things that are decent in the main board but better against certain decks and just play the extra copies in the side.
Exactly, because like also there are some games where you're not going to want to see Citywide Crisis at all, right? If your rival's just going really wide and not drawing cards, you never want to see this. So like it's an okay 2-of for your deck. As far as other things, Blood Curdle's pretty much one of the most, you had it in here before. You're going to be siding this. I think 2 is okay. Maybe even 3. 2 though does make the very good like side in side out with Showdown. But this card is just very, very polarizing against a lot of the recovery girls and the eraser heads, especially the eraser heads. Like they kind of just fold to this card if you have like a decent attack string. It's very, very, very good.
And like I've been seeing bringing that in a lot against like like Mineta that wants to just like clog my board every time I try to attack. And then that's another reason why I end up cutting the Blood Moon Rendings down because Mineta just makes it so hard to get Blood Moon Rending off correctly every turn.
Yeah. Well, if Mineta's getting you down, I mean, I see, again, you already had him in here. Creepy Realization, also a wonderful thing to be keeping in your sideboard. And you have a lot of great 4 checks that you can side out for them, right? Side in and side out your 4 checks. I would go like 2 League of Villains, and then like 2 Creepies for sure, 1 Citywide. So that's already half of your sideboard, 5 cards right there. I have a couple other things. Do you fight Jiro a lot?
I haven't seen anybody. None of the locals play Jiro, but again, like I don't know if somebody, might just been keeping it in their pocket for a real competitive event, or somebody who's not a local might bring it.
Mm-hmm.
so far nobody locally plays it.
That is very fair. It's definitely something that might pop up. As far as your good Jiro sideboard cards, stuff like dissolving the conflict, you know, when she wants to play her big home run combat at the end, it's really, really, really good against that. And with how easily we get to manipulate our health in this deck, you know, it's very, very easy to make sure that we get to do that. Convenient timing is also very good. You know, Jiro generally goes really, really, really wide. Kicking off her turn with -1 to her checks also feels incredibly good. And of course, Citywide Crisis is going to be great against her as well. You know, being able to, you know, reset those big speed home run combats that come in at the end. Just gives you a whole lot of options when it comes to those. House of Cards is also pretty good against her because like she can poke you with like her Jolt or her Gravelift, get that momentum. You can slam a move down and then just go first enhance. I'll play my enhance, respond, put your Jolt on top of your deck from your momentum. It's really, 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 really good in just helping her deny it. This is like actually some of Evil's only momentum hate, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It is hefty though. It is a +3 high block unique spam that removes itself, so it's definitely not free. If there are a lot of like life and water decks running around, Hero Killer is also a really good sideboard. Just because like decks that are really reliant on like specific pieces in their stage, right? Being able to remove like rescue completeds and releases and stuff like that with this card is Excited for Bloods with this card is really powerful. Just those foundations that decks like heavily invest into. Asui, removing her like prone to dry eyes feels so good. Like it kind of says like you better draw another one of those before you plan on killing me.
That's why, like, I could never see going below, like, 4 apathetic in the main. Like, I could see, like, maybe bringing in, like, for those decks that are really, really relying on that just having, even bringing the Hero Killers in, it's just, like, extra copies of something that will remove that problem card.
Exactly. It just gives you a little extra control, which feels, just feels really, really, really nice. It just feels good. And of course, there's a lot of combo decks getting you down. Sticky Balls is really good. All punches are super popular right now. So being able to just like clog that pool, shut off that Texas Smash, shut off that Valiant Assault, you know, the All Might 3s of the world, that also feels very strong.
Yeah, I can see the I think I had one Sticky Balls in the main for a while. I ended up cutting it because I didn't see a lot of those decks where it was like really, really good against. So I ended up pulling it back. I don't remember what I brought in for it, but I do remember I originally had one in the main, but I ended up cutting it out.
Yeah, I mean, we're a pretty big deck, so like more than 4 3-diffs doesn't feel super bad, but I don't know if it's something worth maining. I think it's really all about like how much do you value seeing specific cards in this deck, right? You know, you're a really, really, really large deck, but you also do filter like a ton of cards, but at the same time 70 cards is still 70 cards. So like, you know, are you like that's I think the question that a lot of people will run into when they're like, you know, do I make this deck bigger? Do I make this deck smaller? And it's like, well, what do you want to see, right? Does your ideal turn 2 involve a specific attack or a specific foundation on board every single time? If so, your deck should be a lot smaller. If not, it's okay to be a lot bigger, you know? Our deck is kind of much more of like a pile, right? We would like to open Excited for Blood every game, but past that, there's not really anything that we're dying to see.
Right, exactly. And like none of my attacks like have to be seen as the first one to play every turn. I do, you know, I'm a little heavy on, you know, the 5s there, but that's also why I end up like having the 2 press conference in there to kind of pad that a little bit. So you know,
I think your difficulty curve is super okay. You know, you've got what 9 5-diffs out of your 21. That's super fine. That's super duper fine.
Yeah.
And like so many of them are like, you know, like the only one that's like really not integral is like that's like the thing about these attacks is you can just kind of see them whenever and they're good, right? Like you want to see like Needle Stab and Whirlwind together ideally, but for the most part, like you draw a Knife Slice at any point in time, you just throw it out there. And Piercing Needle, you just throw it out there, you know, it's fine. A Tongue Whip, you accidentally draw 2, they're probably like dead by accident. They just are, just like how it goes. Which I think is super fine. Like this deck is very, very tech heavy for like a 70 card deck, but the thing about playing piles in this game is you just got to figure out like what ratios work for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of like what I've been leaning towards. I kind of wanted to build Toga as like kind of like just a toolboxy deck. You know, I've got a little something for everything, no matter what you're trying to do to me.
Yeah, Do you feel like any of your foundations are just like kind of lacking? They're just not really pulling weight.
Um,
I still wouldn't mind getting that third coping and that fourth bench press in there. I don't want to mess with your mojo too much.
right, yeah. Honestly, like I think most of them, when I see them, they're good. I don't know of anything that I would want to like maybe cut completely or like trim. I would not mind seeing bench press like a lot more consistently because like I can being able to add a speed and a damage to every attack is pretty good.
So good. You could bring quick tact to 3 of and attack mode to 2 of. How you feel about that?
Yeah, I didn't realize I had attack mode at 3. I thought it was at 2. But yeah, the attack modes are good, but I think they're better like on like that final turn when I'm really pushing, because if I'm not sure they're gonna die, I don't want to be blowing up a lot of my foundations.
No, it's just kind of that random thing that like if it's on your board randomly by like turn 7 when you're trying to close things out, it's like this might be what makes or break it, right? But you really don't really care about seeing it at any point in time before that, and if you go a game without seeing it at all, it's fine.
Yeah. It's when it's there, it's okay, but when it's not there, you don't miss it.
Yeah, and then we can put in the fourth bench press. I think this card is this card's just too good in Toga. It's just like way too good in Toga. Yeah. This card's so free. And then I think a third coping can go a long way. More draw power in our big pile of cards that we see the things we want to see more. Even though we're not like super reliant on anything, it's very, very easy to get this card online for us. It's very, very synergistic with our poke play style.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think your main deck looks really, really, really good, man. As far as your sideboard, I think you go the 2 Blood Curdles, you go like the 2 Creepies, you go the 3rd Citywide Crisis. I think those 5 you lock in. Your other 5, I think I would just kind of pick from amongst this list what you like the best. We didn't really talk about it, but I think League of Villains is also really, really, really good. If you finish game 1 and you're like, dang, I died to like one really, really annoying card that I just couldn't do anything about, you just bring this in. A lot of decks it's very polarizing against. If you can cancel, against Tokoyami, you get to cancel things like Dark Shadow Ruins, actions don't count. You can cancel the Twisting Azures, minus plus checks, etc., etc. If you're fighting Staff Strike decks, they just lose to this card.
Actually, like I was looking at this the other day, and I was trying to decide like if it should be like a 1 or 2 of in the side, or not. But again, like it's one of those like I didn't see a lot on the local level. Yeah. But if I were to go to like a larger event, like I feel like this would definitely be a good card to have.
This card's a really cool side because it's just good, like no matter what you like. If you don't know what you're trying to side for, this card is perfect because you can side it for anything. It just cancels anything. Yeah. It's the most free use type of hate card ever. You just cancel whatever you want. The deck building tax of it is expensive as a 4 diff asset that checks a 4, so you don't usually want it like as a main deck piece unless you're kind of unless you have like a global control plan, right? But when you're finding yourself in those matchups where like you actually really, really, really want to slam this thing in, it's gonna provide a ton of value into your deck, and that's when you're like, okay, deck building tax aside, this has got to get in here.
Yeah, right.
So I think 2 of those would be super duper sick as far as your sideboard is concerned. Just because, again, like you said, you don't really know what you're trying to side for, so that's just like the most generic side in the world.
Yeah, gotcha. I
would probably side a 3rd Showdown as well. I think there are some matchups where you're gonna find yourself really wanting to see Showdown quite early on, and it's very, very good for those. And then for your last card, I would really just pick between like Dissolving or Convenient Timing, whichever you feel like you like more. I think both of these are super duper solid. You could even go like, actually, you could even just go like a 2nd League of Villains and like a 3rd Creepy, and then just worry. Yeah, just worry about those cards. If you suddenly start finding a bunch of Giros running around.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd Blood Curdle because we hate Eraserhead. I think this is a really nice. I think this is a good sideboard for you to start off on, and then like your League of Villains, and then like excess stuff like the third creepy or the third blood curdle. If you see things popping up that you're like, oh man, I really don't have a plan for that, you can bring in some of those other things like the dissolvings, or like the convenient timings.
Right, yeah, for sure. I can see that.
Yeah. Do you have any sore thumbs sticking out to you about the deck as is before I send you off to the races? We should side a third compression sphere. Side a third compression sphere.
I do see
It's our momentum hate.
Yeah. We added the fourth tongue whip, but we never took anything out. That bumped us up one card. But I think 21.
We are at 71. We could definitely. I'm sure we could find a foundation to cut if we really wanted to.
Let's see.
We could make. Regen a 2 of.
See, I was wondering, I don't know what do the low blocks look like? Because I've noticed that like most of the time,
We got a bunch of high blocks, but aside from that, we're good.
If I build one happy-go-lucky, like most of the time, I just continue to recycle the same one over and over. So I wondered, like, could that be cut?
Other low blocks, or you mean the happy-go-lucky?
Yeah, just cut cut that down to 3 to put it back to 70.
I think since you want to find 2 of these in your 71 card deck really fast, I think it has to be a 4 of.
Yeah.
Because then, like, if with only 3, you're asking to find 2 of your 3, like, really quickly in rotation, I feel like you're going to find yourself a lot of games going without your happy-go-luckies in cycle. And, like, if you only have 1 of them on the board and you haven't found the second one, it's actually doing nothing, and that feels really bad.
Yeah, it's just
yeah, it feels super bad. If I would cut anything, it would probably be a high block somewhere. Because you got 29 highs and then 21 and 21 on the mids and lows.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, cutting cards in your deck right now is really weird because you have like a ton of like tech slots.
Yeah.
So you're like, man, these 4 ofs, I want to stay 4 ofs because they're so important to my plan. Right. But then these 2 ofs can't really become 1 ofs because like playing a 1 of in a 70 card deck is a little sus. It's like a little suspect.
Let's see what as far as the highs go. Yeah, there's a bunch, and like the only 4 O's in the 2 slot is apathetic and excited, and I really don't want to cut those back.
I wouldn't touch either of those. I think I'd make like regen a 2 of if you wanted to go back to 70.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a world where like you kind of just like play the deck a lot, and you're like, maybe in control's not so good, maybe a mastermind's not so good, maybe regen's not so good. Like a bunch of these, maybe attack mode, press conference. Like there's also a world where like you get some reps in, even more with the deck, and then you're just finding like certain 2 ofs aren't like super fantastic when you see them, and you want to see other things more. You just cut one of your 2 ofs, and then you make 2 of your other 2 ofs 3 ofs, right?
Right. Gotcha. Makes sense.
But for now, I think like unless you're like starting to identify missing links, if you're just finding that all these 2 ofs are working for you, you kind of just got to jam it until you think they don't.
Yeah, makes sense.
And there you have it, guys. That is version 2.0, probably much, much higher than that. But as far as Thomas and I's interactions are concerned, version 2.0 of this Evil Toga 1 deck. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you to Thomas for, of course, commissioning this video experience with me. And if you want one just like it, you can check out the Patreon linked down below. Above all else, though, thanks just for making it to the end of this video, and I hope I can see you in the next one.